for what was Gordon Hayward decision day, waiting to see the meter running. And yep, here we are. People are joining the stream. So let's just get into
People are freaking out.
Let's
Relax,
just get into
everybody.
Let's get into everything. First, we'll tell you about Manscaped. Got to get that stuff. 20% off, free shipping, code Garden. Garden20 at manscaped.com. That's our sponsor for this show, all Garden reports this week, brought to you by Manscaped. But the big news is, and now we know it. Gordon gone. He's gone.
Gordo Gonzo.
There it is. Opts out of the final year of his deal, becomes a free agent. And now there's a massive freak out on Twitter, but first we're going to get into it.
I'm surprised you're saying that, John.
What?
That he's gone. I mean, you've been big on that Knicks or smoke.
I'm going to lay it out for everybody right now. I'm not saying that. Gordon Hayward opts out, okay? Everybody assumes that means Gordon Hayward's going to leave and he's going to go sign elsewhere. It's not necessarily the case. Realistically, there are still several options on the table, which includes an extension with the Celtics, which was always in play, and possibly is something that they're talking about, and also a sign and trade to a preferred destination. What this does is this opens up the possibility that tomorrow when free agency begins, Gordon Hayward can leave and go sign somewhere else. It's something he couldn't do prior to today. So the only thing that's changed is he could sign somewhere else tomorrow. If that was the case, or that was what he wanted to do, we've talked about this from the beginning. He could have opted out on Tuesday, not done an extension, known that he was going to sign in Atlanta or New York and been happy with that. Obviously, he wants something else, and that's either to have the Celtics come to the table with a better offer than they were offering to extend him, or to get a sign and trade to a preferred destination. So it appears options A and B for Hayward, if those in fact are the options, are still in play. I still think the distant option is the Knicks or Hawks, which if he wanted to, could have had it like that and didn't have to do any of this. And we've argued about it the last couple of days that I think a little of this is fabricated by the Hayward camp, throwing out these smoke signals here to get the Celtics a little bit panicky. It was Atlanta.
And this is the latest in the line of that stuff.
We didn't bite on Atlanta yesterday, and then the New York thing comes out today. I believe that those are planted stories. Not only is New York interested, they've been interested all week, according to the report.
Clearing cap space.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Jimmy, start with you, and let's get our initial reactions here.
Well, initial reaction is just, I think, a little bit of disappointment, a little bit of frustration. I know a lot of Celtics fans and even a lot of my friends have texted me like, what the hell just happened? Like, what can we expect to see here? I think we still are almost just as clueless as we were yesterday with how this ends up because of all the situations you just mentioned, John. I mean, is there a benefit to re-signing Gordon Hayward and bringing back the band, so to speak? Yeah, I think there is, based on what we've seen when he is healthy. But if it's over here in Boston with Gordon Hayward and I haven't heard that and I don't know who has, then the Celtics are going to try to exhaust all their options. Now, I saw Mark Stein tweet that the Indiana Pacers were apparently talking about being involved via trade. So maybe that option is still there. But Gordon Hayward's, this is free agency. It's not his first free agency. He knows what to expect tomorrow when the clock hits. And I'm sure he'll take all the calls, and his agent will take all the calls. And Danny Ainge will be very involved too with what's going on. Because, listen, the last thing you want is for the Celtics to end up with absolutely zero out of this. Just turns into a 3-year contract for Gordon Hayward, all 3 years of which were, essentially waste of season. I mean, the third year was the best year, but even injuries came into play there too. So, I mean, it amounted pretty tough.
To nothing, because when you need it's to nothing, because he wasn't available at the end of the season, gotten them into the finals. Again, we're not going to blame people for injuries, but ultimately you got nothing out of Gordon Hayward.
Nothing.
If you leave.
I mean,
nothing.
It's going to go down as one of the most failed.
Nothing. You got nothing.
Trades.
I can't disagree with that more. The Celtics were the 4 seed in the East. No, so
we're not playing for that, Bobby. That's Loserville.
You're playing for you're playing for division titles, Bob. Or are you playing for?
People were talking about the Celtics not even making the playoffs last year.
Loserville. Not playing for that. This was a super team, and
super team. Do you remember the expectations going into last year?
People were like, "Oh, maybe prior to that,
7 or 8 years."
You remember a year prior to that? That's Kyrie and Hayward.
That year was a loss.
Be crazy,
2020
G.
was. He was a ginormous reason the team was so
successful.
successful.
It doesn't matter if they were a tick, if they survived one extra round beyond what experts thought they were going to get this year. It's
no, expectations were much lower.
Zero. You get zero out of Hayward.
I just don't get what it is about this guy. I think it's the fact that he came in with these expectations that he was going to be the front man. The $34 million is attached to his name. What happened. It's a sunk cost, and he still finds a new role on this team and becomes great, becomes the biggest edge, and becomes the reason that they were a true championship contender last year.
Yeah, it's
Bobby, you can't. All those things are true, but also true. It just didn't go the way anybody wanted it to go.
That's true, but it still went pretty good last year.
It didn't go. But it could, but when it mattered most, did it go pretty good?
He got hurt. Players get hurt.
I know.
None of it matters. It doesn't matter. It's not. We're not blaming Gordon. See, Bobby, we're having two different conversations. All the crap that Gordon got for not living up to expectations in the $30 million and not being a superstar or taking a long time to come off that injury. That's one bucket. The other bucket is at the end of the day, dollars to donuts. What you're left with is nothing. No money, no flexibility, nothing to show for it other than getting a little bit farther than people thought they were going to get last year. Big freaking deal, okay? It's not his fault he sprained his ankle at the end. And if he didn't, right now we could be talking about the Celtics made it all the way to the finals. They didn't. So the end result of what you got, the net result off of Gordon is zero. Zero. If he leaves.
If he leaves, and the only reason that'll be the case if he leaves is because the Celtics are making a ginormous mistake in not paying what I believe is one of the 30, 35 best players in the NBA. This guy is one of the best wings in the league when he's healthy, when he's rolling. He just had the most efficient. He just had the most efficient season a player's ever had at his usage rate. He's drilling threes for them. He's playmaking. This guy's invaluable. And if the Celtics look at this and don't pay his market price, what are you doing? People should be mad at the Celtics right now.
What did we say about Al Horford last year? Okay, here's the irony of this whole thing. Okay, Danny Ainge, we're killing Hayward for not living up to his $30 million salary, and now we're going to kill Danny for not paying him $30 million more. I mean, which way is it here? We've got to figure out what it is we think of Gordon Hayward. Are you giving him $30-something million a year for the next 4 years, guaranteed at 31 years old, when he hasn't stayed healthy once? If you do that now, Bobby, that 2 years from now, we could be looking and saying, what the hell was Ainge doing here?
Well, what are we looking at now?
You got to take losses. And the loss you got to take with Hayward here is you got to trade him for cents on the dollar. You sign and trade to his preferred destination. Doesn't matter that we hate Miles Turner.
I don't.
And you just live with him. You live with less. You took a loss. So be it.
I'm down for that situation here, but if we're going in the direction of just losing outright or getting a trade player exception back, this is a disaster. And we're looking at 2 prime years of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. At the very least, I would say just lost. And that's a disaster. You had a situation here where you had 4 all-star players together, a core ready to win a championship now, and it doesn't feel like they're prioritizing this moment. So like you can do your plan, John. Yeah, you can move
on. You move on. You cut your losses at this point.
But guess what you're risking?
You don't cut your losses by overpaying him because you think you're desperate, because you're trying to hang on for one more year of Tatum and Brown. You cut your losses. You make a sign and trade. You go get somebody you don't love, so you don't leave with zero, because that's what they have if he walks. Zero. So
I agree with that.
Trade and move on with it.
I agree with that.
I
think your first priority is to try to get a deal done.
Look at Al Horford 1 year into it. Oh, geez, we couldn't
have
paid
Al Horford
that.
And Hayward are too much different players.
I know, but he's gone. I mean, 1 year later, the team that signed him to that deal that the Celtics wouldn't sign him to was like, holy shit, I got to get rid of this guy. So, I mean, this is the risk by overpaying. You have to stick to your guns and pay people what you think they're worth, not get desperate.
All right,
oh, my.
the Celtics didn't do that with Horford. They rallied at the last second and try to make every move possible to pay him, keep him, and match that Philadelphia offer. So that's not what they're doing here. I still believe they're trying to keep Hayward. It's just, what's the dollar price going to be? He's using leverage, as you say, with legitimate interest from the Knicks and Hawks. The Celtics are trying to keep this at a fair price because they want him, but not at something like 130 million like with the Horford situation. And then there's other teams out here that want him, but also are trying to limit that price tag.
And I'm not comparing the players. I'm comparing the situation, which is the Celtics have assigned a value to Hayward, and that's what it is. And they assigned a value to Horford, and that's what worked for them. It's not the same player, and the people on the stream here who can't understand a nuanced argument, that's not what it is. What I'm saying is you're not going to all of a sudden think, this is what he's worth to me, and then double that because you're desperate. If it gets to that, you have no choice but to sign and trade, and that's what it is. What we're saying is if they let him walk because Danny won't take a loss on a deal, that's where they're gonna. That's the big mistake.
And they're not going to do that. At the very least, they are going to get an exception here. He is not going to leave for nothing. And the reason is because the Knicks, Hawks, they can, rather than having the same salary every year, front load this a little bit where they're going to be taking player reductions and leave less money on the back end of this deal. So there is a minor incentive for the Hawks, Knicks, teams that he can go to outright to do a sign and trade for a player exception at the very least. Now,
oh my God.
Again,
I think Jimmy died.
I'm not gonna be thrilled if it's just an exception. Like, you know,
the exception sucks. $9-10 million sucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the price? Bobby, what's a price that works for you if the Celtics are gonna re-sign Hayward? What's a number?
I've said from the very beginning they should sign him to a 3-year, $70 million deal.
Okay, Hayward, we just went over this. Hayward is far better player than Al Horford, younger, more important,
different market,
more
though.
versatile. And Al wouldn't take that. So you think Hayward is 3 years younger? He's going to take that deal?
So
that's not what he's looking for.
Now we're on opposite sides, John. I don't think the Hawks and Knicks are going 130. This is the pandemic. This is BRI's down 30%. There's real money at play here. I mean, James Dolan's probably losing money out of the pockets right now. He's not giving 130 to Hayward. We're talking about somewhere between 60 and 80 million dollars here. We're cutting hairs. Like this isn't going to keep skyrocketing to the highest level. And you know why we're pushing this back 2 days now? Because there's not a deal there that Hayward likes. He's still searching on three different fronts.
Yes.
He's still searching on three different fronts.
I do not believe we are in agreement on that, Bobby. I think Atlanta and New York is bullshit smokescreen floated by the Hayward camp. If he wanted it, he would have opted out. If the money was there and the destination was there. I think
they're legit suitors.
He's trying to juke his way to a preferred destination or get the Celtics to re-up. And so he's using his leverage here. So he should.
I'm a little different than that. I think they're legitimate suitors, but they have a maximum price they're willing to go to. It's probably above Boston's right now, but I don't think it's a point Boston can't get over.
What have we learned about free agency, Bobby? Okay, it's for real, though. I mean, this is the thing. Everybody has, again, I'm going to use the Al Horford comp. Everybody has a dollar value of what they think some team would want to pay somebody. And it's always way higher than that, okay? Always. Mm-hmm. Way higher. We're always wrong. The market is set by one team, and you have one desperate franchise like Atlanta, for example, that isn't able to lure big name, big ticket free agents there very often. They get one shot at it. They overpay because at least you have the asset. You know, you got to do something with that money. So you use it. So it takes one team. I wouldn't be stunned if they did drop that. I just don't think Hayward really wants to go there. I think he's floating the interest because he wants to be, because again, logically, he would have just opted out and gone his preferred choice to go to Atlanta or to New York.
Right.
That would
he would have.
No, it's not.
What about the luxury tax?
The luxury
going to re-sign Hayward. I mean, you're talking 60 million or whatnot. I mean, it's going to be way more for Boston if they're the ones locking him up.
And they're saying it here. This is interesting too. New York, Fred VanVleet, is somebody that they're talking about. You've heard Atlanta, a bunch of different people. There is a situation where Gordon is left out in the wilderness when those teams sign other people without a deal. So you don't really know. I mean, it could be a risk for him too. It is interesting.
I mean, you're talking about, Bob, you're talking about COVID and all that stuff. I mean, teams are even less wanting to go into that luxury tax scenario right now because of the income that they're not making typically. I mean, so I think that is part of the Celtics thinking too here.
So see, there's no deal that they can get to that keeps them below the tax. You either keep Hayward with the tax or lose him and not pay it. I don't think that's going to be the holding up point between wanting to keep him and getting rid of him here. Now, I do think the bigger concern here that we've talked about multiple times on this show is splitting him up into medium-sized salaries, which still makes Indiana that desirable destination for him.
Yeah. What we have to point out, too, and in fairness to Gordon, because we're not talking about it enough right now, there's a lot of vitriol here on the chat and on Twitter, and I get it, because the feeling is we've been spurned again. Kyrie did it, Al did it, now the vibe is Hayward did it. What we don't know is Hayward's number one intention right now very well could be an opt-out re-sign with the Celtics, and that's always been the plan, and it's by far his number one priority. They just don't have it figured out yet. That could be it. They could be doing the Belichick thing, letting him test his market a little bit, see what's out there, and say, okay, we'll get you close to that.
I mean, it's a player option.
Possible that the whole thing is really him actually. That right now they're basically laughing at people like us screaming about him leaving when
this is an intense negotiation.
Yeah,
and
his plan very well could be let's make this work, and he might want this more than anything else, and wants to stay. I'm not going to call it a bad guy, but the person who might be pushing harder might be Danny here. And so we have to, you got to entertain that possibility as well.
It is, but if he dominated for 3 years in Boston in another world, let's say, he probably opts out in the same way he did now, just looking for a better deal. Are fans going to have the same reaction? I think there's a lot of animosity because of the way those 3 years have gone, and this is just kind of piling it on.
Yeah.
But players put player options into their contracts all the time, and they use them very often for this exact reason.
Look what goes around now. Now that he has the chance to leave outright and leave them stranded, everybody's freaking out. When 2 weeks ago it was dump him for nothing, get rid of him, he's useless. The pile-on with him has been ridiculous over these last 3 years. And what does it tell you that now that he has the chance to leave, people are concerned? This guy was a real valuable piece for this team for many years, and they're gonna only realize that when he's gone.
Give me a break.
I wouldn't go that far.
He could have been, Bobby, but it's
Celtics
not.
Fans aren't that.
Hayward's tenure is going to be remembered for a grisly injury, a year plus of not even being close to right, and then not being ready in the playoffs. That's order, it. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Nothing else. No one's going to remember. No one's going to remember the beginning of this year when he was playing close to an all-star level. That's not part of the resume. That's all it is.
Because you just get to pick and choose.
That's
true.
What you brought him here not to play well in friggin' November and December 1 year. You brought him here to take you to another level. It didn't happen. This is the reality. That's his legacy here. Grizzly injury, couldn't stay healthy, wasn't there when he needed him, never got him over the top, left. We can add that. That's the only other thing that gets to this resume. Unless he resigns, and then we see what we go. And for God's sake, maybe plays one freaking healthy year so we can actually see how good he is at basketball and how valuable he could be to this team. Because we've only seen it ever for 2 months at a time.
Every time the going got rough, though, it was wait till Hayward comes back. You're down 3-1 in that Miami series. Oh, Hayward's coming back. There's the hope. He wins them a game there, and he struggles the rest of the way coming back 2 weeks early from that injury. But guess what? Everybody was saying he was going to leave the bubble and go be at the birth of his child. Everyone was freaking out waiting for that, and he didn't. He took a stand. He got in there and played 2 weeks later.
And what, though? And what? That's commendable. It doesn't change change his story here, which was
it's not
whether
personal.
It's not his. You go ahead, Jimmy.
No, it's nothing personal. That's just how it worked. It ended up. It's shitty for him. It's shitty for the Celtics. It's shitty for Celtics fans. But Bobby, you have to understand people aren't breaking down the game film and seeing what Gordon Hayward did well when he was healthy. I mean, that's something that like you're capable of doing, and a lot of basketball journalists are capable of doing. But like the average fan, they want to know, what have you done for me lately? Why aren't you out there playing? The best ability is availability, all those things.
But what
And
about
Gordon
the
Hayward,
possibility of him being healthy going forward?
That would be great. And now
Sure.
the question is,
that is a
what's
possibility,
the price
I
tag?
guess.
If we knew numbers, we could make this argument right now. I could put it out a hypothetical here. If it's 3-75 and the Celtics are balking at that, I think that would be a mistake. If Hayward's looking for 4 and 120, you've got to discuss.
I think
He must know something.
I think
he must know something.
And we thought the same thing. We thought, so that's where we are. That was basically, again, to use Horford as an example, that was roughly the difference. We're talking 3-60 for Al, and he gets this monster deal, and you're like, wow, those weren't the numbers we're talking about. We don't know what Hayward wants there. But if he's going to decline 1-34, that's got to mean he thinks he's getting close to 25 to 30 per year for a multi-year deal.
Let me explain that one, too.
I don't think he'd walk away from that.
People are freaking out over the 34. The 34 could have been 22 this year, very likely. The amount of real money that players are going to lose this year is absurd. And this is another thing people have to consider. Players could lose 40% of their contracts this year with the escrow holdings. So you have to get a multi-year deal if you're Gordon Hayward. You have to get money in 2022 and 2023 when that money's actually going to be more guaranteed. It would have been insane for him to opt into 1 year given his injury history and the amount of money that he was going to lose this year. So there was never a chance he was going to opt into this. Not to mention the fact that they could have just dealed him anywhere as a great expiring contract if he did that.
There is a chance you opt into it if you don't think there is a chance, Bobby, he could have opted in. But ultimately, we understand what he's looking for.
Yeah,
we know what he's looking for.
Security. You think a guy like that wants to play on a 1 year deal based on his injury history? I mean, of all guys.
All right. No one cares about Hayward anymore. We're going to talk about Enes Kanter the rest of the way.
Hey, I have some big Celtics news here that just came across Twitter if you guys want to hear it. Yeah. Celtics have extended qualifying offers to Taco Fall and Bobby's guy, Tremont Waters.
Oh, so how about this one? This is an interesting one on the Hayward front. The Celtics declined to make Brad Wanamaker a restricted free agency.
That seemed obvious to me after they
after
they took two players yesterday, including a guard. I mean, it's a numbers game.
There's still talk they bring him back for less.
I hope so, because if you're just letting him walk without even say they lose Hayward outright, like we talked about here.
That's what they're talking about, bringing him back.
Yeah, when you want Wanamaker back, but if he's an unrestricted free agent now, there's real interest in Wanamaker around the league, I would say.
Oh yeah. We got
what
that.
league?
He had a good year. Oh yeah, and he well, no, never mind. Overseas isn't really an option this year.
We got that. We got Kanter also. There's a rumor that he's involved in the Portland deal. So we'll see about that. There's another rumor today going back to Hayward. The Knicks have been interested all week. Other rumor, Indiana very much alive for Hayward. So we're still hearing stuff. I haven't been on the Twitter machine in a little while, guys. Anything new coming across here?
No, things are dead quiet. And this is the other
thing.
Just
a lot of Gordon Hayward slander.
The Twitter just freaked out when that news came across. So this is the other big difference between the Horford situation. If I remember this correctly, didn't Philadelphia rise as a suitor pretty quickly after he declined that option?
Ooh.
And Horford
came out of nowhere. It came out and it was done.
Yeah. So you don't quite have that here. There's a lot of smoke and noise and stuff gets into the media, like you said, John, because of leverage points. And you have three sides talking leverage here. The Celtics, those teams that don't want Hayward to go through the roof. And don't forget these sign and trade partners. A sign and trade does have to be 3 years. Want to keep the price low there as much as they can. So if there was a obvious outcome to this, things would be a little more quiet, but instead you're just hearing about all this different stuff.
Which is funny is I go back to the notion that I think still possibly option A is still trying to work out the extension. And this, in fact, is as simple as they're like, well, opt out and we'll just keep going here, you know? So they
because that's the easiest way to go.
That's the easiest way to go. It's definitely the only option at this point, since he wasn't, you know. What's funny is, and here's what I find interesting. Why was it for so long why was it considered by everybody that the smart money was on Hayward opting in, to the point that we're like, well, duh, that's what he's going to do. And then it changed immediately to, there's no freaking way he would opt in. Why would he do that? Like, it was all season long, everybody. And again, I know COVID changed things, but like, even in the months leading up to it, it was like, well, you have the Hayward thing, but he's obviously going to opt in. What changed there, Bobby?
I think a number of different things.
People just not think it through. They're like, 34 is a big number, so he's going to take it.
I think that was part of it. I think he had a good season leading up to the injury. So I think people maybe before that said, oh, well, he's going to take that deal because there's, a lot of uncertainty and he may not get anything close to that at this rate. And then the way things played out, and I think a lot of things we didn't realize, the business side of the NBA, contracts and taxes and all this stuff, and which teams are going to be available for, and who's going to have interest. We didn't really think about all that.
The luxury tax is real, and I don't know that Celtics numbers until you see what they signed for. But we were talking about this right before we began the stream, and anybody out there who saw the news, Kelly Oubre was traded to Golden State. Okay, Golden State prior to the deal was $66 million in the hole on the luxury tax. Okay, Oubre makes $14 million a year. Oubre is going to add $68 million more to Golden State's
and their repeater
tax. They are essentially paying Kelly Oubre $80 million this year. That's how punitive the tax is when you're up in those stratospheric numbers. And again, they make enough here. And there are some teams that don't give a crap about it, but Kelly Oubre basically is costing Golden State $80 freaking million this year.
The Warriors
are tax and a half.
The Warriors are so intriguing because
Biden's tax was bad.
They built they built a stadium where you had to pay a $50,000 tax to get on the season ticket list, just to own those seats, and then you have to pay the season ticket price after. So that's San Francisco economics out there. The repeater tax is a killer too. They're in the repeater tax out there. It's absurd what the Warriors are doing here to try to keep this dynasty alive. But the Celtics aren't in that repeater tax range yet. It's something to consider going forward. But hopefully the NBA too will be considering the cost of this luxury tax thing. They kept it this year. I think they give a little more relief if things stay tough in coming seasons to teams.
I got a comment from a fellow Greek, a fellow Yanni on the board here, that maybe what Hayward's doing right now is he's just writing his article for The Athletic, thanking Boston before he it's just it's not the ink's not dry yet on that. Yeah.
Why I'm moving to Madison Square Garden.
Thanks, guys. Robin hates you.
Yeah,
I'll say this.
Go ahead.
Bobby, hear me on this one. Gordon Hayward role with the Celtics. You know that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to take an increased role. You know that, if Kemba Walker if he's not going anywhere, he's got the ball a lot. He's taking a lot of shots. It gets to the point where Gordon Hayward is most likely going to be your fourth option at best next season. At what point do you say this guy's as a fourth option, we can't pay this guy this much money if we want to, shore up our bench, or if we want to spend money elsewhere or focus on guys like Tatum in the future? Is he essentially, I know he's not a role player, but is he trending in that direction on this team? And is that part of the reason why the Celtics might be hesitant to re-sign him at $25, $30+ million a year? And then you turn into like the Detroit Pistons, where you're paying an absorbent amount of money for just a bunch of role players.
See, the role player thing gets tough because it insinuates that he's a minimal part of the team. But your guy who's gluing the bench together, who's meshing a lot of your star players together, as you saw with Andre Iguodala, is as important as anybody else on the roster. And you saw that against.
Iguodala's not making that money though.
He was making significant money in Golden State.
Percentage-wise of the cap, though.
Yeah, and Golden State was deeper. It's different situations, but the problem is for the Celtics, they're not deep. So why are we freaking out if he leaves? You got nothing left after him.
You have nothing. Well, let's look at this.
Let's also not forget
let's look at it another way.
John. Gordon Hayward also left the Jazz, and they did pretty well for themselves pretty shortly after Gordon Hayward left.
But
Gordon Hayward was a much bigger part of that.
Absolute one-in-a-decade home run.
And so did the Celtics and Jason Tatum.
I'm saying they hit it at 13. They hit it.
Aaron Naismith.
Huh?
Don't maybe Aaron Naismith becomes that guy.
But the Celtics have
they hit
Celtics
it at a
too.
spot you don't expect to. That was an unbelievable turnaround when you literally were like, holy shit, this guy we picked up at 13 is literally one of the top 20 players in the NBA. You know,
they
like
got
that doesn't
excellent.
happen.
They got excellent karma. So I'm not married to bringing Hayward back, as you speak about, Jimmy. If you do a trade here, that's good. That's quality. I like the Indiana idea. You can have some depth on this roster. You can have some flexibility going forward, and I still think you can be pretty good next year. So I'm not going to freak out if he's not on the team next year because they do a sign and trade here. You just have to position yourselves to be in a good spot to win next year because this team's in that place, and you can't take championship contention years for granted because you think something's going to be in place in 2024. What did we say with the 2019 team? This team's built to go to 2025. Next year they were gone. Like, you just don't know.
Again, if you sign Tatum to a max deal, and I keep saying the same thing over and over again, you're looking at 2023 as the time when you need to be well positioned because it's going to be the last year of Jalen's current deal and the clock starts ticking on Tatum. And that's where you need to be ready to have it all. I do not believe
1
that
year.
You're not selling out the future and tying yourself up with things that you don't want beyond that portion of time. Okay. That I really think that. I think that that's one of the issues there too. And you could be stuck between 3 and 4 year deals. I don't believe they're looking at it as a window closing when your two best players are 22 and 23.
We
know
some
that
news
theoretically your window's 8 years long, as long as you can keep them here and build around them. You don't have to do it tomorrow.
Yep.
What do you got, Bob?
So this is Mark Murphy. Hayward's opt-out is being viewed as a formality. League source says it's still possible he returns to Celtics in restructured deal unless, a la Al Horford, he receives a home run offer from Atlanta or New York. And quote, Gordon doesn't even know right now.
So Bob,
what was the last part?
Gordon doesn't even know right now.
This whole thing makes sense because what you said, Bobby, is that NBA is extremely strict on the tampering front leading up till tomorrow. So it prevented Hayward from really being able to dive in, or his side from really being able to dive in, allegedly, on what's out there, what's available. For him.
You heard the first real stink ever on tampering last year in the NBA because Kemba committed to the Celtics about 3 days before that period opened up. And there was just so much of that last summer.
Horford clearly knew what was going on.
Yeah, Horford was set up. So the league was being looked at like a joke, and they got pissed.
Kyrie had that shit set up
Kyrie
in February.
Knew it the All-Star.
The league.
All-Star weekend, John.
That was the biggest one. They friggin' in February they figured it out.
We didn't hit on this last night hard enough because the league, Brian Windhorst said, legitimately hammered the Bucks and Kings.
Yeah, for the Bogdanovich.
They said they weren't going to be able to do that period if they didn't back off it, so they backed off. And I think around the NBA, that completely chilled sign and trade talks. So that's going to make Friday more hectic for the Celtics and those teams.
Almost an artificial deadline in that regard. Because of that, which is to say you have to wait for that free agency window to open. And again, we talked about it. I mentioned it earlier. This could be very much a thing where they say, all right, man, we can talk, but if you want to check it out, and again, this is how Belichick does it for the Patriots. They take their free agents down to the wire. They let them go talk. They say, what did you find? Come back to me. All right, I can get close. I can't get close. Mazel tov. See you later. And then that's it. And this is the situation they're in right now. The problem here is it's the either or shit show scenario, which is to say, if Atlanta or New York is willing to pay you something that you're not going to get in a sign and trade, now you're opening the possibility for Hayward to just go do that. And that's it. So now if he truly doesn't know, this is dangerous, the Mark Murphy thing. If he my belief was he had some idea, okay? Mm-hmm. If he truly doesn't know his value and there's really tampering or discussion right now, and then tomorrow the phone rings and they're like 4 and 130, that's it. Ball game. 0. And in worst case scenario. So it's almost worse in that regard. You would hope that I was hoping that he didn't want to go to New York or Atlanta. He knew what he could get there, but that wasn't his preferred destination. So he's saying, work it out here or send me somewhere I want to go. If it's not that, this is really perilous. They're really on an all or nothing line here.
I mean,
So
I
find that interesting because of the fact that there's so few teams with cap space this summer. Don't those teams like Atlanta, New York have priorities here? The Knicks could strike out on Van Vliet, but where else is Van Vliet going? You know, so like if the home run offer is in place for Hayward, it should reasonably be out there right now. It's not like Kevin Durant's on the market. Atlanta swings and misses on him, and Hayward's their backup option. Hayward's the best free agent out there with Van Vliet. So these teams should know more or less now whether they're going to go after Hayward or someone else out there. So again, I think you have a strong point, John, in that those teams are negotiation points. I think it's real, the interest there, but I think there's a limit to what those teams are even willing to pay. So we go back to re-signing with the Celtics or moving toward a sign and trade. And those are definitely Hayward's preferred options. If he wanted to leave, we'd be hearing about it right now.
But that's what we thought. But now, if he's saying that if you guys are saying the tampering is such a big deal, you know, and we don't know that, like we could have a problem there, right?
Yeah, for sure. But the other side of that is that teams move pretty quick on the first day of free agency. You know, if Van Vliet goes to New York and then all of a sudden Gallinari, like you think might get 24 or something from the Hawks, all of a sudden Hayward's out of destinations.
That's, again, interesting.
And then you know what happens? He signs with this. He already knows what the Celtics are going to offer.
But then he's lost his leverage. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened to Smart, right?
And that's why the Celtics are holding out here. Yep. Everything's at a standstill.
Smart turned it down. Smart turned it down. Wasn't really there. No restricted sheets. He lost $20 million and he got down to 12.
And you know what was key there? They could have hammered Smart even more, but they gave him a fair deal. And they could still do the same with Hayward here, and they should.
Yeah. And they could have hammered Smart.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's where we're at, guys. We're still, I mean, we don't have a ton more to say other than it's going to get interesting. What time, Bobby, tomorrow free agency begins?
Oh, geez. I don't even know. I've been so locked in on Hayward. Is it tonight? Does it start at midnight?
It's tomorrow. No, it's tomorrow night. It's tomorrow night, I think.
I'm not sure
going into Saturday.
It's all kind of happening here. I think, again, maybe it's a different time and it doesn't go fast and furious, but typically in free agency, top guys are gone within the first day. And so we're going to know a ton soon after that opens.
6 p.m. tomorrow, so about 24 hours from now.
5. Okay.
Oh, so we'll be live again tomorrow night.
I can do it. Question. Are we doing a show after every game? Julian asks. We are going to do some sort of show. Yes. We're going to try to do post game.
Don't jump ahead, Julian. We got a long ways to go before.
Actually, it's in 34 days, Jimmy. Believe it or not.
But we may have some revolving guests, Julian, and others out there, but we are absolutely going to be doing post game shows. Hopefully, split from here in the Garden. We'll hopefully have some people down at the Garden. And some people here or remotely again, hopefully at our studios. Right now everybody's in their homes, but we do have a studio set up. We'd love to be able to be out there in the world doing this thing, and then out there at the Garden, the way we normally are. Jimmy, we haven't been there since February. But yeah, and Julian, thank you very much for saying that. We'd love to. We're going to do something for sure throughout the course of the year with Bobby, Joe Sway, a whole cast of characters. It's going to be great. Anyway, new sub. Thank you, Craig. Anybody out there who hasn't already, and if you are enjoying this, and we've loved it the last few days having people out here, if you can subscribe to the channel, you're going to get notifications when we go live. We'll do it again tomorrow at free agency, any major news, and then certainly during the season, post game and things like that. So absolutely, we will be doing that as well. Let's put a bow on this, guys.
We got news to put a bow on this. You guys are going to love this one. Semi Ojeleye is back. His option has been accepted for $1.75 million. Okay. All right. Bring the band back. Well, he might be starting. He might be starting at this rate. That's your start. So for all you who want to dump Gordon Hayward, get ready to hear number 37 called in the starting lineup next year. If not,
you want a sleeper? You want a sleeper for Hayward?
Who's that?
Toronto.
Don't think
Bobby's
Once,
second home.
once Van Vliet goes,
I'll go with him.
Bobby, it's a trade.
That would be something. I don't know if that. I mean, I don't know, but that would definitely be something for sure. I mean,
As long as the Giannis possibility is there, Toronto's staying flexible. They could keep Van Fleet if they don't believe in that, though.
I can't do Semi.
I used to love Semi. I don't know what happened.
3-and-D guy.
He was so good in college.
I don't know what it is. He doesn't even resemble the player he was in college. He was so much more fluid and athletic. He's so stiff as a pro.
I think he's honestly too jacked.
He could jump to the gym. He was much better, and he was agile. He could go to the hole. He could finish around the rim. It seems like he can. He doesn't use any of his leaping ability and athletic ability.
All he's been doing is curls, John.
All you do is angry weightlifting. My favorite thing during the Kyrie disaster of a year was after a shit loss, all you'd hear when we'd be in the locker room was Semi Ojeleye just slamming weights next door. Angrily lifting because he'd never play, so we'd go get all of his friggin' energy and anger out after the game, and we would just hear ka-chung, just stuff just slamming into the ground.
Oh man, I'm disappointed for him. I felt like he could go to a different team and maybe get into a bigger role and actually fulfill some of his promise. It doesn't look like it's going to happen in Boston.
Agree. Semi is better than Yabusele. That is true. We will never speak
by default.
We will never speak of him again.
Hey, never forget the time we used him as the Giannis stopper in that 2018 series.
Yeah.
That was something.
Pig dog.
Yeah. Anyway.
Just filling on a roster
Oh yeah,
spot.
we don't have enough guys to fill out roster spots.
Thank God. Thank God you could fill that role.
Oh, that would be something.
So
Darwin here.
I don't think Gordon's gonna go play with Kyrie.
So this is where we're at. Do they even have a roster spot to re-sign Hayward? Kanter opts in. Semi's here. I guess Wanamaker's slot is open, but we're talking about one roster spot open right now.
Well, you got to assume
they don't need to.
You assume Kanter or Poirier is being kicked over somewhere. And there was word that both of these guys last night. Keith Smith said Poirier was part of that deal to Memphis when they kicked the 30th pick out. And then I heard today that Kanter might have been part of that. So that's interesting as well. But yeah, the Semi thing is surprising. I'm trying to do the roster math here. I didn't expect that.
There's about 19 or 20 players with like 2 roster spots open here since Hayward opted out. There's a lot to work with here. And that kind of raises your antenna too. Like, are they just keeping guys in place in case of a trade here? It's an interesting move on
It is possible. You might need bodies and salaries and things to put together.
I think Danny did that in past seasons too.
No one knows what's gonna. This is another example that no one knows what's gonna happen.
You need some salary filler. I mean, it's not like Semi's making a lot.
Didn't they pretty much pick up Yahoo's third-year option just basically because he needed the salary filler? I mean, there's certainly no reason to pick up that option for any.
Let me ask you this question: who in the friggin' world benefits from this ridiculous math you have to do to make trades in the NBA? Wouldn't life be so much freaking easier if you just let people trade? Who cares? This salary matching stuff is freaking nonsense.
Some of us love it.
Oh, you're such nerds.
Back to the days of like
that's what. There's a name for you. There's a name for you guys.
No, you're right. There's a good point. It makes the sport so hard to understand.
Jesus.
Like, no, do you know the amount of stuff you had to know to analyze the Hayward stuff today? Like, it was just absurd, and that hurts the league. You're right. Like, no one wants to open a rule book to try to understand their sport.
Yeah, it's tough. I was told there would be no math.
How are Jimmy's handles? I would say strong to quite strong.
You know who's got some wiggle? Joe Sway.
Yes. No, I'll take Joe Sway one-on-one any day of the week. We'll film that live.
Yeah.
Joe Sway has shedded some weight. He's looking good for this season.
Joe Sway's good. Joe Sway's got a little bit of wiggle. We've played at the Garden. We've played around at the Garden post Garden reports in our dress shoes before with Joe Sway.
I can't wait for that one.
he's-
I'm gonna need your help with dunking, John. I've been trying to get there. I'm like an inch away. I know you used to do it back in the day, but I'm like
I
inch
have
off.
no help. There used to be a younger version of me that could get up over the rim. That guy doesn't exist. I
Maybe
admire-
maybe you could
I
boost
admire
me
it.
up.
back.
Calf raises, Bobby. Just squats. You got to lift more.
Squats.
Got to do squats. Power, explosion, thrust,
Good
squats.
Good thing the gyms are closing soon.
You just do lunges. That's the key. You need that little extra juice, a little bit more lifting with the legs. You'll get there. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Gordon Hayward, just so everybody knows,
Free agent.
is, opting out. We don't know what that means yet. Discussion that he could be just trying to work it out with the Celtics. And if that's the case, we could have a resolution soon. However, again, a Mark Murphy report very recently in the Herald, and Murphy definitely knows some people on the Celtics side of things. Gordon doesn't know his market yet. Free agency begins on Saturday. He could easily, thanks, Quinter. New sub, awesome. He could easily be overwhelmed by a deal a la Al Horford. Again, this is a very similar situation to the Horford deal. Very, very, very similar. We have a value. Celtics have a value they think they've placed on Hayward, and they're trying to work it out. And if they can't, and there's a number out there and somebody throws it at them, that could be that. So we'll see.
Indiana's in play. Indiana's still in play too, apparently.
Indiana's in play. Sign and trades are in play. But right now, again, developing opinion, Bobby, tell me if you're there too. When we began this, we thought they're working out a sign and trade. Now I've kind of started to lean towards they're working out an extension or he friggin' goes. And that's bad if that happens. I don't know which way you guys are leaning on that now.
How are you feeling, Jimmy?
I'll be honest, man. I've flip-flopped 40 different times on this. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone does. I mean, this is one of the rare instances where even like the big B reporters no one's really had a clue, which is baffling to me, which tells me that the Celtics are I think there's a bit of a standstill. I honestly think it's hard to even say who has like the upper hand right now. Is it Gordon Hayward or is it Celtics? I don't think we find out until free agency starts at this point, because one of the reasons we're hearing is Gordon Hayward's not quite sure what offers are out there. But I think ideally Gordon Hayward would go to a team like Indiana, and the Celtics would be able to sign and trade him and get somebody of value back. I think if it's just an exception, that's kind of a whiff.
Mark, if we acknowledge you're going to stop posting that. Hayward is great.
There we go. Most of these commenters are in line with me. I'll be happy with a sign or extension.
I don't want to overpay
reasonable
for
deal.
Hayward, but I'd rather overpay. If my options are overpay for Hayward, Jesus, my options are overpay for Hayward or get nothing. I have to ask what the overpay is, because I don't want to be saddled. I don't want to be saddled with the contract, but I would lead towards the overpay.
It's funny.
I really would.
It's really funny. We don't know at all what's happening. And we are I'm glad we got it all off our chest and yelled a little bit at the beginning. I feel we needed that. That was a little bit of therapy. Everybody's fired up because you don't want that feeling. Last year was really shitty. That feeling,
yeah, it was.
That feeling when not the worst thing in the world is getting dumped by a girlfriend you freaking hated anyway, and you're like, oh, you got to dump me.
I wasted 4 years with you.
So that when Irving left and he gamed it and we fell for it and everybody hated him. That was the freaking worst. And then on top of that, Al's like, peace out. That was just like, holy crap.
It felt like the end of any Celtics contention whatsoever. And thankfully, Kemba comes out of nowhere.
And it's not quite the same here, but
you'd be in a bad place
if Hayward
leaves
left for nothing. It's a massive step back, and it's just like, and it's and there is no remedy. Before, you always felt like, well, we still got picks. We got the Memphis pick. We got this. We got these guys. We're out of the next thing. And Danny having missed, Danny mucking last year's draft, and again, you're picking where you're picking there. You can't assume you're going to hit a home run, but just coming up completely empty there. And we'll see what happens with this one. There's nothing else coming up the pipeline. And there's not a way to spend or to improve. You've lost you're out of assets.
And even if you get that,
if you're left in this situation, it's going to feel a little helpless for Celtics fans.
Yeah, and even if you get that exception, who are you going to use it on? Is there a big target out there? Do you have the assets to acquire that target? Because teams just don't take exceptions. They need assets too. And the picks aren't there for Boston. The player assets aren't there unless some of these young guys come along. We know that from draft night because of their inability to move up. So they would be, in effect, stuck. So what do you do then? Do you move on from Kemba more aggressively? Do you trade Smart? I think the losses just keep mounting after that.
Again, I hate using the same phrase I've been using the last few days about the take a step back to take a step forward, but you would have to maybe dump Kemba and get younger and then start to look 2 years down the road and not worry so much about now. If you can do that, but you might try to figure something out there as well.
And again,
but I don't know.
So Jimmy asked, where's the leverage right now? It's in Boston just because of the market. Like, we would know if there was something there for Hayward right now. And as Murphy said, he's sitting around, he's waiting. It's a standstill. So hopefully this doesn't go all the way into camp. But like I said, the advantage for the Celtics is that market moves fast. So if the suitors dry up for Hayward, we're gonna know.
The leverage is with Hayward simply because I guess all he has to lose is money, and he'll find a home one way or the other. The Celtics have a ton to lose because it's just they have more to lose. I'm not saying all you have to lose is money. It's millions of dollars. You make these gambles all the time when you enter free agency. You think you have a market. It's there. It's not there. Certainly it's real, but a guy who's made as much money as he's made, he's gambling on a few million here or there with always the possibility that he could, sign 2 years and try to sign. I mean, he has some options, but no matter what, if he misses, he's not going to miss by a ton. The Celtics cannot have him walk. So
what we don't know,
the leverage.
What we don't know is the concern about the role.
He has the leverage. Team. Yeah, Jimmy, as you said, as your opinion develops. Sorry to cut you off, Bobby. You may start coming back towards overpay.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
because the other option's sitting there with what in your hand. It sucks, I mean, like
you'll be starting semi, Jimmy. So not that it matters, but the semi opt-in still gives the Celtics to move on within 3 days, non-guaranteed salary. So not a huge deal there.
So another formality.
Yep. All right. Free agency time.
And we continue to wait. I feel like every deadline that passes, we wait for the next one.
All right, guys, that's it. We are going to wrap it. Thank you for joining. This was an awesome audience. We were packed the whole time, more than we had for the draft.
Angry audience or what?
Huh?
I couldn't see was it an angry audience?
A lot of people are mad at Hayward and they say,
John,
get him out of there. There's some emotional stuff there. A lot of people kind of seeing the same thing, different sides we've taken, make the trade, sign him, overpay him. It's a bit all over the map, but
I got to ask you this, John.
I think a lot of people would feel good. I feel like consensus out there right now is if there's a move they can make it.
Guys, I love getting the Celtics perspective from you. Has any player ever moved the conversation needle like this guy? It's insane. Anytime you put his name out there, 10,000 people want to talk about him.
Hayward?
Hayward, yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Kyrie.
Kyrie was a guy, yeah.
I don't even want
Rondo,
Kyrie
maybe.
pisses me off more than anything. Only because, and Jimmy was down there with me at the Garden a bunch. And the whole first couple of months of the season, that season where everything went bad, I kept looking around to our guys. I'm like, this guy sucks. Like, he's poison. And everyone's like, oh, hot takes.
Don't get me started.
It took people so long to see it. He was just doing it. And then he'd make these comments and we'd be like, Jesus, what a jerk. He just threw the whole team under the bus. No, he didn't. It was actually thoughtful. And he's not wrong. And I was just like,
what's so interesting with me?
It took people forever to get there on him.
Then, John, the worst thing too is like they'd lose 6 games in a row and like Kyrie would say something awful and then they'd win a game. And then everyone would be like, oh yeah, there's problems in the locker room. There's
one guy would smile on the bench.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, they look like they're angry.
And guess
these guys hated each other.
They hated each other. It was palpable, Jimmy. We're in the locker room. Nobody talked.
Everybody,
I've been in. It was
the worst locker room.
5,000 locker rooms. covering multiple teams. I've never walking into a locker room after a win, 6 guys staring down, getting changed, walking out without saying a thing to each other.
A word. Nothing.
They hated each other. I've never seen that.
And then finally, Jaylen Brown basically just said, yeah, we hate Kyrie Irving. In different words. But
and you know who got all the and guess who got all the vitriol in the national media? Gordon Hayward. He's getting favorited. He's Steven's guy. He's causing the problems here. And I'm just like, what?
That happened.
Wade was on that bandwagon.
Terry Rozier was playing more than Gordon Hayward that year. I will never get over that awful take. And it was Stephen A. Smith pushing that to the max. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
I think Rozier might have been a sneaky mini
guys,
problem
again,
too.
thank you everybody for joining in here. Let's tell you one last time about our sponsor, Manscaped. Nice enough to sponsor our segments. We can keep bringing you this content for free, which is what we love to do. 20% off free shipping with the code Garden20 at manscaped.com. A whole bunch of products you can get: the lawnmower, the weed whacker, the crop duster,
ball trimmer.
Yeah, all of it.
Deodorant,
foot powder.
Hey, what?
Yeah. Cologne.
Yeah.
Cologne, a bag, carry it all. You get boxers, hold your bundle in tight. It's great. 20% off free shipping and free shipping with code Garden20 at manscaped.com. We love it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I mean,
wait for my next shipment. Like I said, the 2.0 couldn't hack it on this.
Hey, we got 500 plus viewers right now. Any girls who are on this, you got a boyfriend or you got a husband.
It's Christmas.
Yeah, it's a good Christmas gift.
It is.
Stocking stuffer. And it might benefit you too. I mean,
it's easy and it's great. It might make them self-conscious. But that's okay. Sometimes
guys you want to make them self-conscious. Keep the upper hand.
I didn't know how poorly dressed and groomed I was until I found the right woman to tell me, like, yeah, you can't do that.
You want to upgrade,
and you should do this, and then maybe do that, and then I'm like, better.
Don't sit on 2.0 for 2 years. You got to upgrade. This is the time to do it. 3.0 is out there.
Yeah, you got to upgrade. All right, guys, again, thank you for joining. We'll wrap it up for Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning. We will be back. Again, thank you, everybody. A lot of new subscribers out there. I love that. Press subscribe. You'll get notified every single time we go live. We'll be doing this a ton. Jimmy Toscano, Bobby Manning's from Celtics blog, and CLNS Media, John Zanis. Thanks a lot, guys.